Hello, how you doing, and welcome back to DeeLee Plus. My name is Damian Lee, and today I'll be reading through r/TraumatizeThemBack. I'll be reading through the stories and then giving my opinions, and I encourage you to give me your thoughts in the comments. As always, we're continuing our Let's Play through Better Adventures Plus, and I hope you enjoy. My teacher called me Catherine instead of learning how to pronounce my name, so I called her by her first name for the rest of the year. In 6th grade, I had this math teacher named Miss White who was pretty strict. Our school was honestly very diverse, but she was very, as her name suggests, white. I have a pretty difficult name to say as it's Hawaiian. I'm half Japanese and half white, but both sides lived in Hawaii for 3 generations. My name is Ptooey. It looks daunting, but it's just Ka-U-E. So honestly, not very difficult in my opinion. Anyway, Miss White stumbled on my name when she read attendance. So I did the usual, oh, it's pronounced Ka-U-E. You know what she did? She literally went, I'll call you Catherine. Let me tell you, I was flabbergasted. Like, it was a private, very diverse school, and I'd never had this happen. Teachers had horribly mispronounced my name, but this was definitely new. Also, no offense to any Catherines, but I love my name, and it has a lot of meaning to my family. And to be honest, it sounds cooler than Catherine. Take no offense, please. I was so surprised that for the first 2 weeks, I kind of just let it happen. But at some point, it was just irking me because she made no effort to learn how to say my name. I never told her she could call me Catherine, and on top of that, she could have even asked me for a nickname or my middle name or something. So, I started calling her by her first name, Jessica. She was the kind of teacher who no one called by her first name. Even the other teachers called her Miss White. I had to look in the yearbook from the year before to find it. But from that day on, she was Jessica. And when that didn't make her mad enough, she was Jessie, or Jess, or JJ, or any other nicknames I could think of. She never yelled at me or anything. She just corrected me and said, Miss White, and then I would ignore it. For example, Jessa, that's Miss White. Jessica, I don't get number 3. Can you explain? She never lost her temper, but was always annoyed. She called me Catherine for the rest of the year, so not the most satisfying story, but I was happy with that revenge. Miss White apparently got fired 2 years later for microaggressions towards students of color. And honestly, I'm not surprised. I just wanted to share this story because I figured y'all would enjoy it. This is a pretty good and honestly kind of mild story to start with. I just wish that you had made up a name like she made up a name for you. But I think it got under her skin more to keep calling her by her real name. I also feel like we've all had teachers like that, you know? The teacher that has just that reputation for being very, like, no one likes them. Other teachers don't seem to really enjoy talking to them. Like, everyone's had that teacher. So it's nice to see them get their comeuppance. And then big shocker by the end, oh, she was fired because she was targeting the students of color? Wow. So how surprising. This foreshadowing is a literary device. Next post. Server thought creme brulee shouldn't be Bernie, so I gave her a menu education. I'm 27M, pastry chef at a high-end restaurant in Portland. I do the dessert menu. Been here for 4 years, went to culinary school in Paris, the whole deal. So we hired this server named Ashley maybe 3 months back. She's early 20s, super bubbly with customers, which is great, but she started doing this thing where she'd come back to the kitchen and tell me how customers wanted their desserts modified. First time she asked if we could do the chocolate tart without the gold leaf because a customer thought it was, quote, too fancy. I was like, okay, sure, weird, but whatever. Plated it plain. But then it became constant. She'd asked if we could make the creme brulee less Bernie on top. That's literally the entire point of creme brulee. She wanted me to do our Earl Grey panna cotta without the Earl Grey because someone didn't like tea. Just, like, make a different dessert at that point. I tried explaining that the menu was designed a certain way. These were my recipes. But she'd do this thing where she'd be like, but the customer really wants it, with this pouty face. And I didn't want to be this difficult chef stereotype, so I'd usually just modify it. It was getting ridiculous, though. My sous chef asked why we were basically running a custom dessert operation. I said, I don't know, trying to keep Ashley happy, I guess. Then last Saturday, we were slammed. Full restaurant, 2-hour wait list. And Ashley comes back during the dinner rush and says, Table 8 wants the deconstructed apple tart, but can we put it back together? Because they don't understand why it's all spread out like that. I was so done. So I just stopped what I was doing, and I was like, Ashley, why did they order the deconstructed apple tart if they wanted a regular apple tart? And she got all defensive like, they didn't know what deconstructed meant. And I wiped my hands on my apron and walked out to table 8 myself. My chef de cuisine was like, what are you doing? But I was already going. I got to the table and introduced myself and said that I heard there was some confusion about the dessert. They seemed kind of surprised to see me. I explained that deconstructed meant we were serving the components separately so you could experience each element. But if they preferred a traditional preparation, I could absolutely make them our classic tart tatin instead. They were actually really cool about it and said, oh, that makes sense. We'll try it as designed. Walked back to the kitchen and Ashley followed me and was like, you made me look bad. I said, no, you were making me remake dishes all night because you weren't explaining the menu properly. That's literally part of your job. She complained to our manager that I went over her head. Manager pulled me aside and I explained the whole 3 months of modifications. Manager was like, wait, you've been doing custom orders every night? When I told him everything, he basically said Ashley needs to actually read the menu descriptions and understand what she's selling before taking orders. They made her do a full menu tasting the next day. She had to try every dessert and learn what everything was. She's barely talked to me since, except for when absolutely necessary. But I spent years developing these recipes. You can't just crowdsource the menu based on whatever random requests come in. Also, maybe don't tell a pastry chef how to make desserts when you thought creme brulee was supposed to be soft on top. So a couple things. One, my family had a restaurant for some time, and it's one thing to be at a more casual restaurant. We had a Southern home style place. So a little bit of variation here and there, okay, that's fine. But OP said this was a high-end restaurant. Normally those menus, I don't think those were supposed to be changed, right? At least that's been my understanding. The chef has a menu, it's done this way, that's what you're coming to experience. That would be the impression that I would have. I also like that instead of just being dressed down and being oh, you should do this, they actually did additional training. Because this could have been easy as you didn't learn our menu, you're gone. But no, they went through the effort to train them and make them prepared for the job, which I really like. Though if you're a server at a high-end restaurant, I feel like this is probably something you already went through, right? I don't know. It's one of those things where you should have already known this. Next post. My wife won't stand up, but she will shut you down. A bit of context beforehand. My wife is F32 and I am 27, live near Paris, and often have to travel with the subway for practical reasons. The subway's in France and has folding seats for people to use, and the common rule there is to stand up when the wagon is crowded so people can have more space. My wife is disabled and suffers from chronic pain that makes her very uncomfortable when she stands up without moving for a few minutes. So she found herself a folding seat for the 20 minutes we had to stay on the subway. The story starts maybe 2 minutes after she found her seat. The wagon starts to get filled up with a lot of people, and because of that, everyone except her stood up to let people enter it and have a bit more space. But it seemed to not be enough for the two decrepit individuals in their 60s that decided to place themselves next to her and start complaining about people not standing up so they could have more space. Like it wasn't targeted at her at all. Usually my wife doesn't say much, but this time she was pissed and decided to get at them as much as she could. She opened her bag and showed her CMI, a card for people with mobility issues, to pinpoint the fact that no, she can't stand up. And the old couple instantly stopped their nagging by pretending they couldn't see or hear her. So she pointed out that she at least deserved an apology for their rudeness, at which one of the two responded, "But we couldn't know that you were disabled. It's not written on your face." Oh God. My wife tore this person another one right on the spot, stating that 80% of disabilities are invisible and that having to show her card to nasty people without getting any kind of apology was awful enough to endure. And she continued until the two retired dumbwits decided that staying at this place wasn't a good plan anymore and that trying to blend into the crowd behind was a far better idea. Especially since now our side of the wagon was staring at the whole ordeal because of the drama taking place in front of their eyes. Needless to say, Nobody heard anything from them afterward. They left the wagon a few stops after, and my wife stayed on her seat until we had to go. And I made sure to tell her how proud I am of her. Yeah, invisible issues are real, and also, the thing I don't know why you would go with a whole train car, stand by the one person who is sitting down. It feels like you're going out of your way to start something, you know? And OP's wife shouldn't have to disclose or broadcast exactly what she's going through to justify to these two old people why she's sitting down. It shouldn't matter. Most of the train is standing up. Clearly, if she's sitting down, it's because she needs to. It's not for fun, you know? OP's wife handled it like an absolute boss. I mean, you can only hope that that's how that can get handled, to put someone in their place when they're talking out of turn, something they know nothing about. Next post. The time I traumatized a nosy neighbor with kindness and boredom. This happened years ago. Me and my wife rented a small, single-room flat on the top floor of an old townhouse. A nice arrangement for a young couple. Except for the lady living below us. She was a real thorn in our side. We immediately started off on the wrong foot because barely a week after we moved in, she knocked on our door to inform us that our toilet is leaking through her ceiling. She dragged us into her apartment to show us the wet ceiling. She was always a polite, seemingly nice lady in her 50s, but somehow full of vitriol. This was a serious problem, and the owners were out of town, so we apologized and arranged a plumber immediately to prevent further damage. The plumber had to break our bathroom floor to check, and there was no leak. Anywhere. The building manager years later candidly told us that she does this with every new tenant. Maybe to establish some kind of dominance or to collect insurance. Who knows? After that, she frequently stopped us to complain about everything. You're stomping too loud. We had carpet everywhere. You hammered all day. We put together a small IKEA cabinet in like 15 minutes on an afternoon. Stuff like that. She also liked to complain about other residents. XY over there is selling drugs, you know. At one time we had a friend over, and she knocked to check if I was home or if my wife was cheating on me. She was a general menace for 2 years, even though we kept the conversations polite and jovial at all times. The only thing she didn't complain about was our cat. Instead, she creepily insisted that our totally indoor and neutered female cat is the bride-to-be for her male cat that roamed the halls at all times. At one time, she stopped me in front of our door. Yes, she just happened to climb the stairs there, and started to explain something, and casually asked where I was born. She was racist too, although never against us. And I noticed that she was not interested in the answer at the least, and a plan was formed. I started to tell her everything about me in excruciating detail. Where I was from, how I was born. I was a miracle baby, you know. What happened to me when I was 3, how I felt during historic events in my childhood, all in a happy and confidential tone, like we're good friends. Just a torrent of boring personal details and good vibes. I noticed she took a step down the stairs. I took a step down too. She wanted to interrupt. I started another tangent. When we reached the landing on the stairs, I positioned myself in front of her. I kept her for almost an hour. When I ran out of stories, I started to just make things up on the spot. When I let her go, we already inched to her apartment door. I assured her that this conversation was so great and that she can expect more riveting tales from me in the future. Next time we met in the hallway, I went out of my way to look happy and jogged over to her to chat. But sadly, she had urgent grocery shopping to do. Next time my face lit up as I saw her and waved, she just fled back into her home. My plan was a glorious success. I scared her away with kindness and boredom for good. She never really bothered us after that. She never risked another story hour with me. We lived there for a couple of years after that. We even got our poor cat out of her arranged marriage. This is such a great story because you can just imagine the internal monologue this old woman's having where she's like, I've got to get out of this conversation. Just the fear brewing in her head of, oh no, what have I gotten myself into? They're monologuing. I've had a nosy neighbor like this before when I lived in an apartment complex, and I never once considered I could just be so incredibly boring that she would mind her own business. What an incredibly smart plan. This is always my strategy when dealing with a person who's pissing me off. Kill them with kindness isn't a common turn of phrase for nothing. People acting with malice rarely know how to react when you come back at them with what appears to be genuine kindness and honesty. I developed this method to deal with difficult customers when I worked retail, and then found it applies in basically all social interactions. Great work unleashing kindness on her the way you did. And yeah, it's true. It's disarming. It's so genuinely disarming that no one knows how to handle it if they're not expecting it. What a fantastic story. Next post. The break room is not your break room. We have a thief at our office. Mostly it's small things like sodas, snacks, frozen meals, things most people wouldn't think twice about. A couple of months ago, I noticed my cereal, applesauce, yogurt, and sodas had all disappeared. Because of a previous issue, I always made sure my names were on each item. And because I'm very careful with my money and bring certain things to help me through the day, I immediately brought up the issue with the office manager. Her first response was, "Did you put your name on it? Did you actually see anyone take those items? Do you have proof someone in the office took those items?" When I wouldn't relent on the issue, she finally told me, "The break room is not your break room. It's shared space. If you're concerned about keeping your food, keep it at your desk from now on." I wanted to call her out on this hypocritical stance because last year, quote, "Don't keep food at your desk, put it away in the break room." But hey, cool. I got myself a backpack that keeps food chilled and kept stuff at my desk in my drawers. If other people got their stuff stolen, I didn't hear anything about it. Cue yesterday, when we had a small potluck at work. I brought myself a few Dr. Pepper Zeros. It's mostly the only thing I'll drink. And apparently the manager had a few in the fridge as well. Except hers were taken. She saw me drinking one and asked, "Is that my drink?" I told her, "Nope, I brought it from home." She demanded to know, "Is my name on it? Where did you get it if you didn't get it from the fridge?" My response to that was, "There's this amazing place called the grocery store that lets you purchase canned sodas. I bought mine there, and I've kept it up front with me this whole time." I even showed her the backpack with my other stuff. She asked if I knew who took her drinks. I asked, "Did you see anyone take the drinks? And do you have proof anyone took them?" She got snarky with me and told me that she shouldn't need proof about someone taking her drink since her name was on them. I told her, "My name was on my food, but it didn't stop someone else from taking them." You have to remember, the break room is not your break room. It's a shared space. Maybe you should keep them at your desk from now on. Am I probably written up? I'm sure. Do I care? No. This place needs me more than I need it, and I'm already searching for another job. That's a great use of malicious compliance, and if you do get written up, there's no reason. You didn't do anything wrong. You know, you can't be in trouble for using her own statement back towards her. So I wouldn't, you know, she can't do that. And my guess is she either knows who the office thief is or is the office thief. And that's why, you know, she's not doing anything about it. It's either someone she knows and is protecting or it's herself. And, you know, she's like, why would I give up this racket? Next post. My employer requests after sick leaves that I describe my symptoms. So I do. So yeah, my 36M employer has this whole form that everyone has to fill every time they return from sick leave. It's for accounting and mostly contains pretty dull stuff, such as the length of the leave and what category of sick leave it is and on whose permit. But it also has this whole section that I've always found rather direct, which is basically making you describe your symptoms. I presume it's there because, as you know, bosses are always paranoid about people faking sick leave. So after a while, I started to make sure that they hate their own nosy forms, and I started giving symptom descriptions in unnecessary and graphic detail. Here are some of my favorites over the years. My diarrhea was so loose that it bordered on drinkable water. The clumps of phlegm that I coughed up could stick light into oh my god. The clumps of phlegm that I coughed up could stick light object into walls. this is a confirmed fact. While I did not proceed to test this, by all accounts my bowel movements behaved as a non-Newtonian fluid. They pus-filled discharge smelled so bad that it could knock out small mammals. At first my boss would just come to me in the hallway and nod mysteriously. I read your report. Now she seems used to it. It's not really for her anyway, and she usually just skims through them. She said it's the people at accounting she feels sorry for. I've never met anyone from accounting. Then again, they'll still keep with the same form after years and years, so maybe they enjoy reading these? OP mentions they're in Finland, but I don't think you have to describe all of that. Like, you don't need to, you know what I mean? You can just be like, it's private medical and that should be fine. But my goodness, what a gross way to... There's another, like, malicious compliance adjacent story. How yucky. Next post. I snapped my mom out of her homophobia by making her question her own sexuality. When I was a teen, I came out as a lesbian to my homophobic mom. As expected, she didn't react well and did not take me seriously. We had a bunch of fights around my sexuality for a few years until one day she tried to justify the fact that it was probably a phase by revealing the very peculiar relationship she had with her high school best friend. She told me all about how they were so close that my grandmother couldn't stand her best friend, about how my mom had to sneak out to see her, and they'd secretly send each other gifts by throwing them at each other's windows. She proceeded to tell me that her and her bestie would often shower together, and I quote, "She was so obsessed with my ass, and I was obsessed with her chest, and we always jokingly groped each other in the shower." Then ended her tirade with, "And look at me now. I'm married to a man, I have 3 kids, and live a normal life." I got fed up with her bigotry and decided to match her energy. Since she wanted to convince me I was straight so bad, I simply went, "So you had a girlfriend in high school?" She started freaking out and tried to tell me it didn't mean anything. I ignored her protests like she ignored mine, and thanked her for being brave enough to come out to me. Mind you, my mom also told me that back in high school she was courted by a bunch of guys, and essentially was dating like 8 dudes at the same time just to get free meals, but she didn't really care about them. I casually reminded her of that, and asked her if it wasn't too hard being married to a man when she's clearly a lesbian. Offered to get in touch with her high school best friend and rekindle their flame, because that was clearly the love of her life. No matter what she said, I kept on insisting that she must be a lesbian in her straight phase. It was the first time in all the conversations we had about my sexuality that she was speechless and had no comeback for whatever I was saying. After that, she stopped bringing up my sexuality. The next year, she even asked to meet my girlfriend. My 14-year-old sister also came out to her last year, and it went incredibly smooth. She was very chill and supportive and didn't once question it. To some degree, I do believe parts of what I said, and think my mom is some level of queer and in denial. I don't know if she stopped being a bigot because she realized that, or because she finally understood that someone trying to decide your sexuality for you doesn't feel very good. But either way, it worked. Got homophobic parents? Use whatever clues you have from their life to convince them they're gay. Works like a charm. Wait until your mom finds out about bisexuality. Also, good on you for turning her bigotry around on her. That seems like it'd be the most positive outcome, wouldn't it? That the mom is bi and that it's not like a depressing stay in the closet and a loveless marriage kind of thing. You would hope that's the case, because there are stories like that where they just, you know, play straight because it's what the family would expect, and it's just that era of like, you can't come out, you know? So I do hope it's the former, and it's just, you know, she finds out, she's like, oh, that's what that's called. You know? What great work from OP though. Specifically every time she was like, no, I'm not, you know, I'm not lesbian, and then you'd be like, oh, you're so brave. Like, that's fantastic. Because it takes... It's a taste, literally a taste of her own medicine. It was a fantastic thing, and I've never had to experience this, both because of my identity, and my mom has been very supportive of my brother, and she is, you know, queer herself, so like there's a lot of support there. But OP sounds such an effective tool to combat their mom's bigotry. This was very effective. That's gonna do it for today's video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe if you do, because we upload every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And until next time, I'll be seeing you around.